my Zencaster now going too, so we have that running as well. We believe in lots of backups here, Sean, because we've had some really, really bad times with recording.
You're starting to sound like a Dalek a little bit, Dan.
Delightful.
Hopefully it'll correct itself.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's the mixer. It's just a old piece of crap that I just can't afford to replace yet.
Yeah. I guess I could rotate mine if I could figure out. I could rotate mine over to you if I could figure out a way to record more simply.
Maybe you could sell your books.
Yeah. Make $20 for going for the next.
Yeah, mine are not nearly as awesome. I have a fairly good collection, but apart from Cthulhu, it's all mishmash of various things that interested me at the time. Never got play.
So do you think that Dan's recording will sound like that?
It's
I'm
possible.
Also hearing the Dalek.
Yeah. Right. So sometimes Zencaster does. Oh, Dan, are you doing a local backup? I didn't even set up my local backup.
That's what I said about the task cam.
Oh, I missed that because I was probably typing. Yeah. I'm going to grab my task cam because I am a fool for not doing it. I'm sorry about that. It'll take me
That's fine.
a minute. But I think we may have to depend on that because Zencaster tends to record what we hear in Hangouts. It sounds like roughly like that. I'll be right back.
We like many recordings because there have been times when we've had to resort to, okay, this is third level backup. And that's what goes live because it's the best sounding one.
Well, I did a Tremulous game with some of the Skype of Cthulhu guys and some others. And it was a 3-session game. In the third session, Rando was recording it, and I guess somehow it got lost, or somebody went into their where they store things and erased it for some reason, or so it's never been, which is fine with me. I don't, it was fun playing with them, but they were sort of like, so I think your redundancy system is the right way to go.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're doing this for content,
yeah,
it's a bigger deal.
Yep.
Sure.
I might be able to.
All right, headphones in. Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay.
Son of a. What?
Son of a.
Did something let the magic purple smoke out?
Test one. Test.
We can hear you.
Right, but the recorder can't.
Oh.
Oh, and here come the sirens.
New York crickets.
You sound good, Sean, as far as quality.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Can't comment on your content yet.
No, not yet.
Oh, perfect. Yes. All right.
So
I'm good to go whenever.
Awesome. Looks like my test cam's rolling, and go ahead and start with the Zencaster. Make sure we see levels there. Okay, testing. Okay, I see some levels on mine. I really wish I would make that darker.
Do you need us to test as well, or?
Are we recording?
Yep.
Right.
Okay. Yep. It's showing up for both you guys that there's
perfect.
See, if you look, Sean, there's teeny little waveforms that are super hard to see because it's light gray on white.
Yeah.
No, I cannot see that, but I see the red moving a little bit. So,
Okay.
cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Levels are looking
I've
good.
got this recording in MP3 version, so it'll be really quick to upload whenever we do hit stop.
Perfect.
All right. This is the closest to on time we've started in a while.
Yeah. Only 15 minutes late.
Yeah. All right. Let's get going.
It is a center for higher learning.
It is a place with centuries of secrets in its shadowed halls.
This is where you have come to learn the mysteries of the cosmos.
Welcome to the Miskatonic University Podcast.
They'll teach you things you can't unlearn.
Hello, and welcome to the Miskatonic University Podcast, episode 126. This is the podcast dedicated to Call of Cthulhu and other horror and Lovecraft-related role-playing games. I'm Keeper Dan.
I'm Keeper Chad, and this episode, since Murph is still on sabbatical and John is away, we have shanghaied another ringer. Sean, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, guys. Real pleasure to be here. Like a Little League player being invited to play in Fenway Park.
From the Pawtucket team.
Listeners might remember Sean from the interview about Extra Life Charity Project last fall, and we'll be talking about a slurry of various topics that have been simmering in Sean's mind lately that he's applied to us.
And also, this episode is specially dedicated to Yogg-Sothoth.com. No, that did not work, but okay.
We'll fix it in post.
Oh, that second line was meant for Dan, but yes.
Yep,
Good.
we're dedicating the whole show to the YSDC forums and community, without which there would never be an MU podcast. And the Yogg Radio was the first podcast I ever listened to. It's the first podcast I ever heard of. And it's what got me into the game it rekindled my passion for the game, because at the time I was in a place where I had no gaming group. And so we are wanting to acknowledge the awesomeness of YSDC and encourage our listeners, who probably are also YSDC folks, to help support them and to help out with some circumstances that happen that we'll be covering. And it's basically a YSDC fund drive.
All right. Yeah. Fun drive.
But
Put the fun in fun drive.
yeah. But first, let's get into the Campus Crier.
Miskatonic University Campus Crier.
Campus Crier's Miskatonic U student paper. Here's we're going to go through Mythos-related news and feedback for the podcast. This episode's being recorded on June 26th, 2017.
You want me to take
Take
this one?
point? Yeah,
Yep,
why don't you
take point. All right. So the lead story at this hour is that there's some disappointing news about the Masks of Nyarlathotep Kickstarter campaign and its effect on YSDC. The good news is that all the backers of that Kickstarter are going to get all the stuff they were promised. Unfortunately, the bad news is that Paul unexpectedly had to give up a whopping £10,000 of profit that was meant to keep the YSDC website running. So all the rewards of the Kickstarter could be 100% fulfilled. So in order to follow through with the promises, unfortunately, he had to give up some of the funds that were expected to have for YSDC to keep it running. So this was said to be due to a miscalculation. We don't know more than that. And best not to speculate, but so only 3,000 pounds of the of what they cleared in the Kickstarter actually went to benefit the site, and that's a drag because the whole thing took 10 years and a huge amount of labor to put together, mostly volunteers, I think almost entirely. Artists were not paid, the writers were not paid. Brett Kramer, who put the thing together and, painstakingly over a decade, he didn't get any payment. It was all supposed to go to YSDC. So this is a huge letdown, I'd have to say.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah. And so, and the next news item is that because of this, Paul of Cthulhu, our Cthulhu godfather, is selling off his entire Call of Cthulhu collection to raise funds to keep the website going. And he has released a pretty touching statement about his feelings about it. He's kind of putting on a brave face and keeping it positive. I think it's time for us as fans to take a moment to just mourn the loss of, having him have to give up his whole collection for what was supposed to benefit the site is just sad.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, we have kind of a bit of a feeling whenever Murph mentions that big flood where he lost all that gaming material.
Yeah.
And that was kind of it was an act of nature that there was no planning for. This is kind of it is a voluntary act on his part, and it almost makes it sadder.
Yeah, well, and he really is being gracious about it. And I believe it's genuine that he's trying to put a sort of positive spin. Yeah.
He's trying to look at it in the best possible light, and that's the only good way to go about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we should mention that we're not talking about a casual collection. We're not talking about a collection like mine that fills up maybe a shelf and a half. He has pretty much, he thinks, everything ever published for the Call of Cthulhu game, and multiple editions, first editions. He has manuscripts that are typewritten and signed. I know he has a first edition manuscript of Call of Cthulhu. He has other materials in there that are just totally not replaceable, and just a great completist collection.
Yeah, it is literally a wall in his home.
Right, which is why he's calling it the Fall of the Wall. Again, it's like so sad. Now, his sentiment about this has been that he feels like as the years have gone on, he has gotten more and more joy out of the people part of the community and the game, of playing, and of the YSDC community, and that's where his love of the game resides, and not in the things, not in the material culture of the game, which is a little hard. It's hard to imagine him really feeling that way, but he's such a positive guy that I think I have to buy it.
Yeah. I've got to just take everything that he's saying at face value. There's nothing about him as a person to leave any doubt that he's saying anything but he's sincere. So, he made the choice. This is what he's doing. There in the thread, there was somebody who stepped up saying that, hey, I know a guy who can make you an offer for this, for the whole thing in one shot. We'll find out later, eventually, whether or not that's a thing that actually goes through.
Yeah.
So far, Paul hasn't mentioned piecemealing out the collection. He's trying to do it all in a single lump.
Well,
so we'll see what happens.
At the time of recording, he has allowed a kind of window of 1 week, actually, where he's putting it up for, all or nothing purchase, just so that if somebody wants to do that, they don't end up getting little pieces taken away from them. And there is already a lead, which blows my mind on the thread, but after a week, and at the time of recording, we're in that sort of zone where he's not letting the whole thing go piecemeal. But by the time this airs on Monday, it will in fact be the time that he's going to sell off bits and pieces.
Yeah.
So we'll have a link in the show notes if you want to check out some of this. I'm sure the great stuff will go fast. And
and it's all for the right cause. And another thing in that same thread that we'll have the link to is that there's a number of various other businesses that, revolve around the game that are doing stuff. Like Campaign Coins are donating to Yagi when you buy their 10-pack gold, Innsmouth gold packs. And Badger had a Feed the Shoggoth thing that had donations. And
yep, Stygian Fox had an
Stygian
offer
Fox
as well.
Is doing one, yeah.
Yep.
And Chaosium did a thing where they're going to basically cover their own printing expenses out of their royalty copies.
Huh. Oh, for the companion?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So they get a sort of, under the old system, they are getting product as part of their
Well, this
tithing
would have
scheme.
been set up under their older setup, obviously. So that's what they're doing, is they're actually basically just producing their own royalty copies to sell. And,
wow, I hadn't seen that. That's cool.
Yeah, that's something that Mob posted on the forum in that same thread. And so, yes, it's just very cool to see these other organizations also step forward and say, yeah, Yogg matters.
I got to imagine it's a pretty bittersweet situation for him. I mean, it's a collection he's been working on for years, and anybody who collects anything, it's hard to give away any of it. But if you read some of those posts and just people talking about, I think people this may be a real turning point in terms of people going, hey, wow, I've been using this site for years. I've been kind of coming in. I haven't really paid attention. Maybe I should be throwing some money in the collection box, or maybe somebody like, me should say, wow, I got to become a patron. And I actually signed up this evening because I suddenly realized I've been sort of using it without throwing any money in the till, and I should be doing that. So I encourage other people to do that as well. If you use the site, if you enjoy the site, if you enjoy the people, subscribe.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, if you've got anything to throw in the direction of YSDC, or maybe this is a good excuse to become a patron of the site, please do consider doing that now. Yeah. And
absolutely. There's patrons get a tremendous amount of downloadable content. It is just staggering how much stuff he's got. And that's why it costs so much to run the site, because that's a ton of content. The bandwidth alone has got to be just crazy.
Yeah, gigabytes of data exchanged every day is what one of the blurbs said on the site.
Mm-hmm.
It's gotten huge and expensive. That's why he's got to sell stuff off. So.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so if you do, here's a thing. So we'll have stuff in the show notes, and I just thought it would be totally selfishly fun if I believe in the collection box, and definitely in the patron. When you become a patron, you have a little window of text where you can send a message. If you hear this and it prompts you to join YSDC, join as a patron or give a little money, could you just add a little GoPods to the MUP thread on Arkham Market Square so that we hear about it? I just kind of want to know, is that weird? Is that too weird? I just want to know.
Yeah, it's understandable. If there's somebody who heard us that thought, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Yeah, we'd like to know that we had a piece in helping to get that out there. But
for sure,
main thing is go and do it.
For sure. Links are in the show notes. Next up, or somebody else want to do King in the Yellow? Maybe I shouldn't call it King in the Yellow. Are we ready to move on?
Yeah. And from Pelgrane Press, the Kickstarter for Robin D. Law's new game, the Yellow King RPG has now been released onto the Kickstarters, and it's, let me take a look at the page here. Let's see how well it's doing as of this moment in recording. It is, holy cow, out of a $29,322 goal, which I would love to hear how they calculated that. They have 120,936. So yeah, with 24 days to go, they have basically just kind of swept through the goal, and they're now plowing through whatever stretches that they feel like putting through here.
Yeah, they're at 1,100 backers at this point. And Sean, I don't know if we should mention the pool that we have going, but I am complete. We had a little informal bet about how far this thing would go, and I so underbid.
I'm right in the sweet spot, but I got a feeling they're 3 days out, and they've made this much money. I think the next guy up in the Price is Right is going to take this one.
Yeah. I don't know who the
$1.
top one is. Yeah, no, the $1 guy, he's gone.
As is Max, the $2 guy.
That's right.
Yeah, see, Yellow King really just isn't my wheelhouse. You know, I can appreciate it. It's a cool thing, but it's just not something that really appeals to me on a gaming level. It's like, okay, yeah, it's fun. But apparently, I am definitely in a minority. There is a whole lot of love for the Yellow King.
Yeah, I think, Robin D. Laws gets a lot of love. There's a lot of name recognition here. Yeah. And you know what? I have to say that I'm kind of getting swept up in the buzz. And this isn't something necessarily I would pull off the shelf and say, yes, I need this. I don't have a lot of Gumshoe stuff anyway, but I'm pretty curious, and hearing Robin talk about it on Ken and Robin talk about stuff was pretty interesting. Mm-hmm. I'm curious what
I listened to that earlier today, and he does a really good job explaining how it's going to be different from standard Gumshoe. And he's really good about taking their base rule system and tweaking it to fit all sorts of very specific mindsets and feels.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like it has a minimalist combat system, which I am attracted to. Mm-hmm. And some kind of card-based system, which I guess 1-to-1 uses, but I haven't played that in person yet.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a copy of the 1-to-1 stuff myself yet.
Well, it's
pretty interesting. What happens is as you have highly successful rolls or less successful rolls, you get cards, and those are things that can affect how you're able to roll in the future. And as you accumulate these cards, it has an impact on what the likely outcome is, because it's a one-on-one. Cthulhu Confidential is a one-on-one game, so they can't kill you. They can just make it really bad when you get to the end.
You make it really wish they could kill you.
Exactly.
Well, that's really interesting. I wonder, this is described as a reality horror game, and I mean that makes sense with the Robert Chambers stuff being kind of reality bending. But I kind of wonder how that will play out in the cards if you sort of begin to lose touch with the timeline you're in, or what kind of tweaks are there.
Well, in the episode too, he was talking about that these aren't going to be like pre-printed things necessarily. It's more like you're handed a 3x5 card that gives you details of what is happening at a given moment, or a creature appearance or something like that. That the changing aspects of reality are kind of written down and handed to you like that on a card.
I got it. So it can be GM driven as far as what those tweaks are.
I think.
Yeah.
Not having looked at any of this, I'm only kind of going by my interpretation from what he said on the episode. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes, and it's certainly going well on Kickstarter. So they're gonna have a great, big, beautiful publication of this, like they did for the Dracula dossier and stuff like that.
Awesome. Up next, we have a new Lovecraftian drama from Chris Lackey of hppodcraft.com, and the usual suspects are involved. It's called Quiet and Bold, and it's said to be kickstarted for an episode. Said to be kickstarted. I don't know why I said that. It's going to be kickstarted for an episode called Bride of Innsmouth, and below is a link to... below. Jeez, man.
Attached in the show notes is going to be a link to a YouTube video for one of their earlier episodes. I think they've already done a couple. This is a YouTube show done by Chris Lackey, and I don't have his name in the notes here. Let me see if it's on the...
I know the... Yeah.
His partner. They did these other videos that were pretty... Greg Johnson.
Okay.
And they did the other Lovecraftian videos that they had done previously, like the Pikmin one, and there was the Statement of Randolph Carter one. They're just
Where he
little
calls
short
down
videos.
into the tomb. Yeah.
Yeah, having a conversation with the ghoul down there. And, Pikmin showing his art to the first guy that he showed it to, and that, oh, this last one, that's not so bad. Oh, it's upside down. Ah! And it was just, they're really good, and they now have an actual, show that they're putting together and releasing on the YouTubes.
Yep.
So this first episode's 16 minutes long.
Andrew Lehman does some voiceover work, kind of, all the people who are usually involved in that circle.
Mm-hmm. Including Chris's hilarious wife, Rachel.
Yes. who has been watching Star Trek. Are you listening to that?
Oh, yes.
Podcast? Yeah.
Oh, yes. It's hilarious. She is great. Apparently, she's coming to Necronomicon with Chris, so I'm looking forward to meeting Rachel because she is just funny.
Oh, I didn't know Chris was coming. That's great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep. They did a thing where, for raising money, instead of doing a Kickstarter like they had in the past, they just did a ransom model where if people donated enough to the show, then they just released an audio book that'll be recorded to everybody. And so yeah, they got up the funds and they're coming to the con.
Sounds good. Dan,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask, maybe if you drop out of the Hangouts and come back, that we might get better quality. It's just
It's getting bad.
Yeah, it's a little hard to listen to.
All right, I will do so. Let's try.
You're trying to get this so it's just you, isn't it, Chad?
Yeah, almost.
10 little Indians.
Yeah, because nothing would be better than a solo podcast with me.
Just me. All Chad, all the time.
All right, so let's see if this is any better.
Yeah, it's like a 10% improvement. We'll see.
Yep.
Okay. Am I at least intelligible enough?
You are. You just sound like a deep one, underwater.
Oh.
You'll hear it.
Fish man. Blah, 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 blah.
Oh, that sounds pretty good. We should turn this into a musical.
Except for that's the only lyrics I remember.
Worst musical ever. Under the sea. Yeah.
And there is a animated Lovecraftian short that is super cute.
Yes, it's super cute. It's cute and pretty creepy. I sort of like Edward Gorey level of cute and creepy, I think.
Yeah. And so and it's actually the animation's kind of hard to describe because it's got a texture to it, like it was painted, or it was, I don't know, maybe a rough paper was used, like a construction paper thing. It's not sure, but it's very neat.
It is neat. I
Nobody
like
has
the style.
arms.
And nobody
Yeah.
has arms. It's like a
Nobody has arms or legs.
right. It's like Lovecraft, but with weebles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so yeah, the link for this will be in the show notes. It's just a neat little short that somebody put together.
Yeah, worth watching. Up next, we have an update on the Cthulhu Dark campaign, which has concluded. It is at 71,000 pounds. That's 71,835 pounds, or a total of $91,000 plus dollars, with 1,700 backers. And I guess they did pretty well.
Yeah.
They had a couple of stretch goals that they did not meet. One was a campaign that sort of weaves by Graham Walmsley that would have woven the 4 settings together. That did not get unlocked, and neither did Scott Dorward's campaign that is set in that 1851 setting. But Graham says it will be revived sometime down the road in some form, and backers have already been able to look at their Cthulhu Dark Zero, which is a PDF, a sort of shortened PDF of the project, and it's looking good.
Cool. Yeah, that's the nice thing about these ideas that may not reach that particular stretch is that, okay, well, the content is still there, the people are still there, they obviously had a passion for it, it'll see life.
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, I kind of like that because I want to see stuff trickle out for this project and be available,
Yeah.
later on. Because you wouldn't even have to have the core book to play the campaign. It's a 2-page rule set that's still free, and so people could jump on that way.
Yeah, but I really wanted his campaign to get funded.
Fair enough. So did I. I really did. Yeah, I really did.
Yeah.
But I
don't
think
like anything that Scott Dorward writes.
Yeah.
It's just good stuff.
Yeah, he's a sick puppy.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
And I think, it's in mid-writing. So, yeah, I think it'll get there. I mean, I think it'll see the light of day.
Mm-hmm.
I hope.
And there's talk of that there's going to be a web and TV series that was going to cover the Lovecraft tale Reanimator.
Wow. Now, live action? I know nothing about this.
It's, live action. And apparently it's going to be Italian produced.
Produced or in Italian?
Well, let's see. I'm trying to...
I mean, I'm not afraid
Italian
of subtitles.
production and Italian cast and crew. So I would not be surprised if it actually is in Italian. Maybe it'll have a cheesy redubbing and be kind of like a spaghetti western. That could be fun.
Good. I don't... Yeah.
It's a modular project. We start with a web series, then we'll have a TV series, and at the end of the journey, we'll have a feature film.
Huh.
The web series is in post-production. So, yeah, they're taking the Reanimator concept and moving it into a whole new direction of types of presentation.
The poster does kind of look like those old Civitavecchia posters of Italian horror films from the 70s. So I'm curious if they're emulating that.
Yeah. It does look cool.
I hope so.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to keep an eye on how it comes, and I'll deal with subtitle for something this neat.
Yeah, sure. I hope it's subtitles. I don't want it to be dubbed. I vote for subtitles. If there's I'm clicking on the website, but there's nowhere to vote.
Then we've got a little bit of Chaosium news. They have now appointed Lillian Cohen Moore as their Director of Marketing and Media. So they've expanded out yet a little bit more, and so we have another member of the Chaosium staff, and so she is going to be part of their media outreach arm, and probably with general publicity and talking to press and that sort of thing.
You mean us?
Yeah. That just kind of occurred to me whenever I read it and went, wait a second. I'm probably going to wind up having a conversation with this woman at some point.
Yeah, well, that's fascinating. And I'm gonna have to look up this person and their former work and background them and investigate.
And from the bit that I copied over here is that she also is experienced with RPG writing and editing, and has releases with White Wolf, Paizo, Atlas Games, Catalyst, and others. I mean, so she's definitely an experienced gaming veteran. They didn't just hire a marketing person with nothing backing it up as far as knowledge of the genre.
I am fascinated.
Yeah, that makes me happy. It's okay, they when companies hire people on to do something, but when you find out they really don't have any clue about the type of thing that they're working with, it's like, oh, well, okay, well, eventually you might learn it. But she's walking in knowing this stuff, so awesome.
Yes.
Yes, welcome aboard, Lillian.
That sounds really skeptical. I'm just really I didn't see this before, so I kind of want to drill down and see where she's from. Maybe you will cut that out because I sound so terrible.
Yeah, I can trim out your dubious
I
sounds.
know. I'm just browsing is what I'm doing, but I can hear myself sounding like a jerk. I mean, more than usual. Slightly.
Nonfiction, fiction. I'm looking at her website now. Oh boy, her role-playing game list is nice.
Now, here's the question that I have is, what is the Call of Cthulhu chops? Not that she can't do the job without them, but I'm just wondering if she... background in horror television. I'd like to know what that's about. Art history. Two points for that. Is it bad to have a rating system for PR people?
I guess it depends. Is it Call of Cthulhu or Trail? Because Trail, that's pretty good. 2 points in art history. In Cthulhu, it's not great. So
good point. That's a good point.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, that is an excellent way of defining it.
All right. Well, that's cool. That's really interesting. That's real, I don't know, above the podcast or in the podcast. It's really interesting because they've sort of been playing round robin with the PR stuff, and at least I can safely say in the previous regime it didn't work out so well that way. So it's an interesting move.
Well, and think of what it means too. I mean, as somebody who works in the business and all that and deals with hiring and such, you don't hire somebody like that unless you have sort of a bedrock of work that you need them to do, and you have these visions for other things they could do.
Yeah,
you've got this video game coming out this summer that's Chaosium endorsed. Is that the wave here? We're going to be looking to do that.
Yeah.
Well, December, yeah. But whatever, is that the way they're thinking, how can we brand this in the same way that, Marvel makes more money off branding than it does off the comic books?
Right. That is interesting. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the strategy plays out for sure.
Yeah.
I guess
Chaosium is also, they're more than the Call of Cthulhu company now. So, and they're definitely doubling down on their wide spread of IPs as well as types of products. They got more games going now.
Sure.
Right.
And I don't know, do you think it's a coincidence they've hired this person at the same time they've just changed their publishing rules or their licensing rules?
Well, I agree. I think I don't know that it is directly related, but it seems like there's a kind of overall strategy getting implemented after now they've had a couple of years to just sort of collect their thoughts. It does seem like
Sounds like following a roadmap for progression of the company.
Sure. If I was them, I'd be looking and saying to this person, okay, we work with these publishers right now. Go and figure out how we can do more. Sandy has set up a Pathfinder Kickstarter. Is that a road we could be going into? We could be teaming up with them with things. Is there, Frog Gods? Are they a group that we could be doing more stuff with, established publishers? Hey, this Age of Cthulhu is working out really well. Are there other publishers like that might be interested in having a Cthulhu sideline?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
Right, or they could be tightening up too. I mean, the rules to some degree indicate a clamping down on known quantities. So it may be.
I read it differently. I mean, I read it as we've got 3 classes. One is you're just kind of doing your thing on your own, and then sort of this middle range, and then there's a big leap up in terms of people we want to form professional relationships with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your Golden Goblin Press, and that's your other publishers they've been working with for a while. When they talk about sort of forming relationships, it sounds a little bit more formal than I sent Mike Mason an email and he said, sure, we just need to proof it and you need to give us some sort of payment for whatever you do.
Right. I guess I'm saying sort of tightening of the pool, just not necessarily expanding, but you might be right also, as you mentioned, they could be going after known quantities that are just not doing Cthulhu right now.
Yeah, they're tightening the unknown pool. They're the people that are sort of putting things up over which they have no control over, kickstarting things using their brand, and they don't really know how it's being done or if it's being done right. And you don't do that. That's a loss of income unless their plan is to get income from some other publisher, and probably a more reliable and well-known one that's with professional staff, or somebody that'd be open to having her go, hey, let me show you how to do this right.
Yeah. Yep. I could see that.
It'll be interesting to see how things develop. I mean, this is the direction they're going in, and they own it. So,
yep,
we're along for the ride.
And it's kind of a fascinating time as an observer. I mean, the whole arc of Chaosium from near implosion to now has just been a really interesting time to just happen to be on national television as we are every couple of weeks talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really just been a weird thing of this whole soap opera that was, at first it was like a bad Mexican soap opera of just drama and chaos, and now it's like refined and seems to actually have a plot.
Like Twin Peaks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably the right feel for it.
I don't know. That was not a good analogy. No. All right. So, cool discussion. So I was thinking we'd do the card catalog as a promo and just say YSDC is the resource. Yeah.
So did you want to do the actual thing you wrote out here, or you want to just
mention
it once again?
Well, I don't know. Do you have a druther? I mean, scripts. I don't know if scripts are that terrible. We could also just.
Yeah, let's just kind of do a quick, more of an improv-y sort of.
Okay. The idea was to be over the top cheesy, and maybe that's not that interesting. Maybe that's actually.
We could probably do it if we were to do it as its own solo project, just us, and
pre-record it or
specifically for that, and then edit specifically for that and all that. But just being a part of this, it does make it a much more cumbersome idea.
I think you're right. Yeah.
So for our catalog this week, for this episode, is basically, once again, yogsothoth.com. Because they also have a massive inventory of resources, both for patrons and some non-patron stuff too. So go on there and take a look. There's not only game book catalogs that you can go through and get an idea for, okay, this creature appears in these books if you're got a feeling for running a certain thing, but there's just tons and tons of stuff to download and read.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Here's a little trick. For when we do a bestiary, and let's say we're going to do night gaunts, and I want to get all the background as all of the background I can on night gaunts. First, I'll go to the Dan Harms Cthulhu Encyclopedia. But one of my tricks is to use Google's advanced search, plug in YSDC as a website, because you can search by website, and do keywords night gaunts. And I'll just look at the threads over the years where people have mentioned night gaunts, and they'll have ideas. They'll have you end up with the Cthulhu Wiki entries that actually tell you the scenarios that night gaunts are mentioned in. It's just a vast resource, and so if you're writing, it's an awesome place to go to just get tips and ideas and look at conversation threads. And that's a free resource like that. Anyone can do that. You just, you might feel really guilty for using that for several years before you give any money to them, as perhaps I did recently. But, that's a free resource. You don't even have to be a patron.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to, I'm sure it was mentioned on the air, is that as far as I'm aware, I think Paul is the originator of the live play RPG audio, because years and years ago, they accidentally recorded part of a D&D game at Paul's house. They recorded something else and somebody forgot and left the recorder on. And on a lark, he uploaded it to the site. And that is the earliest recording of this that I am aware of. And it's now become this massive thing that, a live audio play. That's just a standard genre now. And that's kind of awesome.
Spawned a sister podcast.
Yeah. And so, yes, I'll have to try and dig through the YSDC to see if I can find it, if it's a patron only or if it's openly available. But that little piece of audio, so I can get the date off of it to see just when that was recorded and released.
Yep.
But it was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Or you can post a thread and ask the question. That's the other thing about Paul of Cthulhu and the whole community, is they're extremely responsive. So if you have a question about night gaunts or whatever it is that you're working on as well, you can post a question and you'll get a huge amount of assistance from the community. There are over 5,000 registered members, which blew my mind. I didn't realize that. I probably would have put it at about 1,000, and 600 downloadable resources available.
Yep. It's kind of staggering. So that's why we're going into this. YSDC is the foundation upon which all the other Lovecraftian podcast stuff has been built. So we're going to stand up and say, yep, these guys, Paul deserves all the help he can get because he's done that much for the community.
Yep. Click on the clickies in the show notes and add GoPods to whatever comment when you donate, so that we can kind of see it happen.
Yeah.
And sorry, okay. Is it okay to say this?
Yeah.
Sorry, Graham. YSDC is the website of the week for us, but we will start tackling that backlog of card catalog links that you have continued to send us next time.
Yep. Yeah. Graham has still been wonderful about sending us all sorts of cool ideas. So we're not forgetting them. We were just trying to, make use of what makes sense at the time.
And we got a speak pipe voice message from DM Kojo.
Whoa! And fireworks go off. Woo!
I hope that was only fireworks.
Is that loud?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that time of year. I don't know if you remember previous years. It's almost difficult to record.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see if this is audible to you guys.
Greetings, keepers. This is DM Kojo calling. I wanted to call in regards to your latest episode about sanecdotes and sanity mechanics in non-Call of Cthulhu games. One game that I really enjoy is Palladium Books Beyond the Supernatural. And this is a system that does take a little bit of heat from people, but I think a lot of that's unjustified. It's an enjoyable system to play in. Beyond the Supernatural is a combination of Cthulhu-type investigative horror along with characters that have some psychic abilities and parapsychologists and things like this. The way that Beyond the Supernatural handles the sanity mechanic is with something called horror factor. The more powerful a creature or scarier a creature, the higher the horror factor. And the horror factor acts basically as a saving throw against horror. You roll a 20-sided dice against the horror factor, and you have to meet or exceed the horror factor to avoid any negative effects. If you fail your horror factor save, the negative effects include falling to the bottom of the initiative order, as well as losing your first attack and the ability to defend yourself with a parry or dodge. In the Palladium system, you have multiple actions per round to attack, parry, dodge, and such. And so losing these doesn't make you not have any actions in a round, but it does limit your ability to act early in the combat. So they don't have specifically any insanities tied to this, although they do have an insanity table that you could certainly use. So just wanted to let you know about that system. Keep up the great work, and go pods.
Thank you so much, DM Kojo.
Nice.
Did you guys hear that okay?
Yes, definitely. Super clear, actually.
Yeah,
Awesome.
very much.
Yay.
Yeah. That's
so,
cool.
Yeah,
I have
there's
never.
another system. I hadn't heard of it either.
Well, I've heard. Well, no, I hadn't heard of Beyond the Supernatural. I heard of the Palladium system.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Didn't know that they had a horror game, so that's cool.
Yeah.
And
I found a couple of links that I put in the show notes here. Wikipedia article and the Palladium store.
Cool. And DM Kojo is somebody who's appeared around the Webiverse. He's been a guest host on Thaco's Hammer, a D&D podcast. And yeah, so we have some links to his Google Plus account.
Presence.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, yeah, this is somebody that I know that whenever he first started writing into us, and John was like, oh, hey, I know who that is. So, yeah, I don't listen to D&D podcasts really, so, not that familiar. But, I know other people definitely are. So thank you so much for calling in and leaving that voicemail. It's great to know about other systems that have these interesting horror mechanics.
For sure.
And now I will stop the recording so we can upload that.
Okay. I will continue the backup recording.
Yep.
Yeah, from now until I forget when Dominican Day is, but until that's basically until Dominican Day, all the fireworks go off every night.
Wow.
It's like 3 weeks. Dominican Day is awesome because they have a parade with all the Little League teams.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
This is totally cool. Yeah.
So are there questions here you guys want to definitely touch on? And questions here you definitely are like, yeah.
Well, I cut out the spending, and it's not because it's a bad
No, I
question.
get that. Yep.
Yeah. And no, as far as I'm concerned. Wait, are there only 2 now?
No.
In the... Oh, I see. Like below a ridiculous script that we won't read. Right. Where do you get your ideas?
Yeah.
Oh, there are a bunch. Yeah.
There's 4.
Yep.
I don't think we'll get to all 4, but maybe. Guess depends on how argumentative we get.
Oh, challenge accepted.
Great.
I do like the top 2, but I'm, in particular, but let's see. Like, where do you get your idea? Those are easy. Yes to a mystery. I am motivated to. Did you want to scuttle that?
Nope.
Did you?
No, I'm happy if you. I think what I would like to change it though is change it into, we're increasingly hearing people say yes. People should be saying yes to gamers and such, and I'm wondering how that fits into both a mystery and a horror game. And I've got some language to describe why it may be difficult, and then just sort of open it up to like, how do you encourage people to say yes and feel involved without, having things wander off in a case of a mystery, or having people feel like, there's a whole, I've got some quotes and such, but you got the Dennis Dwiller saying things like, a lack of control is essential to horror. Otherwise it's just what he calls a bug hunt.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think we're going to end up argumentative.
Excellent. Well, I'm not saying I agree with what he says either. I mean, and I think, and this is why I went through the whole, and we can talk a little bit about why I was like, is this really a problem or am I making a problem? So
that's an interesting angle too.
Yeah. So, all right. I got all the MP3 files all safe and secure. So
brilliant.
We'll go ahead and hit a new recording here. So Sean, it's going to refresh on your side.
I see that.
And you'll just select the mic again.
We sometimes end up with a echo.
It just grabbed it.
On the second
okay.
half.
Yeah.
Right? Anybody getting an echo? I'm not.
I am.
Testing. Oh, you are?
Let me actually try again.
Testing. Echo.
Oh, okay. It seems to be gone.
1, 2, 3, 4. Table 4 for your pizzas is ready. So, okay. Are you able to hear us okay, Sean? Is it?
Yep, ready to go.
Okay. All right. And recording in progress. All right. And
settle down now, class. It's time for your next lesson.
Okay. Sure.
No, that makes sense.
Here's the fire trucks after the fireworks.
That's right. Yeah, strange coincidence.
Oh, I'm really immersed in this podcast. The sound effects are great.
Ambience.
All right, I'll pod down when I'm not talking.
Ooh.
Pod down. Okay.
I'm not talking.
All right, so yeah, I'm just tweaking something on my computer. I had an annoying pop-up. Okay, so we've got various talking points here, some questions and discussion ideas. Starting off with a very interesting one here. And Sean, why don't you go ahead and pose this so that way, since you came up with these, what's your way of stating this?
Sure. So I'm playing in a lot of different types of games as well as Call of Cthulhu these days, and increasingly the mantra is to say yes to players. So whatever the player says, whatever you should say yes to it. Maybe it's a yes but most of the time you're saying yes. And what I've been mulling over lately is that problematic in a situation where you're playing a game that's essentially a mystery or a horror. If mysteries are relying on information gaps between players and the keepers, to saying yes diminish that gap, or in a horror situation, if the horror comes from players feeling somewhat helpless or in dire straits and overwhelmed, if you're saying yes to them, does that diminish the overall experience for them? And I just wanted to sort of run that by you guys and see what you guys thought about it and how you might handle the notion of how you say yes without diminishing the overall experience.
Well, what I feel on with that would be it kind of depends on what's being asked. I mean, if a player is basically saying, this is what I want my character to do, as long as it's something within the realm of possibility of the setting and, the basics, I say, yeah, go right ahead. It'll be this kind of role. I'm not sure where else that would even come in. Is people proposing setting changes?
You are talking about player agency, right? Not necessarily and we find a castle in the middle of Arkham or something like that.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It's the idea is the player agency. It's the notion that if you're, and I've played games before where and this works particularly well in a pulp setting, where whatever they say, I say yes, because you can't go too over the top in Pulp Cthulhu. If someone says, I'm going to, take the car and drive it up the side of the wall, you're like, yes, that sounds great. Let's see if you can do that. They've got luck mechanics, and you don't want to sort of bend it too far. But it feels to me that in a Call of Cthulhu type game or a Cthulhu Dark type game where the characters are fragile creatures, saying yes to them in terms of being able to do things, do you make the characters feel they're too much in control of the situation and therefore take away the potential for mounting horror?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can violate atmosphere, and atmosphere is a variable thing depending on group and keeper and the players. I think it's part of the social contract to some degree that you are all relatively on the same page, and there are situations where that's very difficult to achieve. But I think it's fair to have a conversation before the game starts about what the mood is, what the parameters are, what kind of story we're trying to tell, so you don't get people randomly doing pulp moves. Can you hear me with the things going on? Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we hear you just fine.
That you don't end up having somebody do a big pulp move that's silly and slapstick or implausible in the middle of a very atmospheric kind of tightly, I don't know, I want to say tightly controlled game, but where the atmosphere is important, where you're trying not to get too
dark and dramatic.
Exactly. Yeah.
You don't want Warner Brothers cartoon action to pop in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, although what's interesting for me is that in the games I've played, that may be how we start off, but once the game starts, there's a naturalness to players to want to ask for advantages rather than sort of ask for obstacles.
Yes.
That they when they ask for something, they're rarely saying, "Hey, could you make this a little bit creepier for me?" Although I will say Skype of Cthulhu, when they ran Cthulhu Dark, I really liked that system where Graham said, do you think your character is feeling a little bit insane? Go ahead and roll. If you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, by I think no accident at all. That has been my bar since I started keeping, because I think I read Stealing Cthulhu from Graham Walmsley, and I really loved the book, the rule set itself, and followed his discussions on YSDC, his threads about the game, and so that I sort of absorbed that into my own DNA early, and felt like it really informed Call of Cthulhu play, where I prefer to ask people, you know, I mean, I don't think I perfected it. I loved listening to his actual play of Cthulhu Dark, but you know, that sort of getting people involved, getting the players involved in their own against their character's best interests. And I don't think it's impossible. I know that I've done it, and I don't think it doesn't take that much skill. I think if you foster a mood that, hey, we're all telling an atmospheric horror story, even at a convention, I have had some success with that, I think.
And that's interesting, because I mean, most of the time when a lot of the games these days are player driven, and traditionally Call of Cthulhu has been more game master driven, in terms of the game master is creating this scenario and the players are reacting to it. In some cases, they're almost being herded towards the horror. And I agree with you. It does sound like, there's at least a model out there for being able to say to the players, well, you have to say yes too. You have to say yes to potentially going insane. You have to say yes to the fact that your characters are feeble creatures that, can't necessarily do things, and that you have to say yes to the notion that you might not survive. And in fact, a lot of people play Call of Cthulhu saying, "Oh, I want to go insane. I want to die at conventions. Oh yeah, that'll be fun," and then fight all the way through the game to make that not happen.
Yeah, I mean, this has come up in my life before, where other people have said, well, that's not possible. Players tend to act in the character's best interest, but I don't know why it's been true that I haven't found a lot of resistance to that. And now you've been in 3 games that I've run, and I don't necessarily think, we ended up with everybody having the hair stand on end, but I think they were pretty successful in just achieving a mood together, not because of anything I did, that achieved that without getting very pulpy and violating. I didn't see people sort of wrangling for advantages. You think about the hobo game. That was pretty dark, and everybody kind of kept it dark and enjoyed the insanity and death. Or am I wrong? Am I looking at it from the wrong side of the screen?
No, I don't think you. I don't think you are. I mean, I can think of all 3 games, and they were all powerful experiences in terms of the game moving forward. Not to kiss up too hard here, and I think part of it though is that from the outset, you as the keeper weren't. There's a Faye Dunaway quote about method acting, that you should be experiencing the emotions, not indicating them. And it felt like in the games that you ran that worked particularly well, all of the character, you could sense when you were playing a character that character was feeling those emotions. And as players, it sort of drew us in to the idea that we should be feeling those emotions too. And that sort of pulls you out of that meta thing of, okay, how do I win? How do I win? How do I win? And get more into the notion of, we're telling this story together, and part of my role in this story is I'm a piece of grass in the wind at the end of the day. So, actually I think I've been in 4 of your games now, and each one, it's sort of this notion that that bad things are happening, and you accept that as a player, and therefore it gets accepted as a character.
I mean, now I don't Yeah, I'm not sure how it works. I really don't. And in online games, I feel very blessed that I can just pull together mostly keepers for games that I play online, that I run online, and I just find that everybody kind of wants that same thing, that they all kind of want to be part keeper in that they're deepening the horror. And but the sort of that would be the control, and then the experiment would be taking it to a convention. But I still, maybe I've just been lucky to some degree, or maybe these things are working that I don't know how they work.
Well, it may also be a trust factor too. I mean, at the end of the day, players, I think, want to have some sense of control. They want to feel like they have control over their characters, and if you can create an atmosphere where you sort of create that pact of, I'm going to play by the rules of the game, I'm going to create this scenario here, I'm going to let you sort of do whatever it is you can do, you can control your character, I'm not going to force you to go here or force you to go there. But, you have that limited level of control, but I'm going to potentially, at the end of the day, the horror comes from finding out that whatever you thought you had control over, you don't. So,
yeah, I mean, that's the sweet spot. I mean, Dan, what's your experience in sort of trying to achieve the right level of atmosphere, which is a separate topic actually than the original question?
Yeah.
But where do you stand in that spectrum of yeah? Yes.
While I may have something in mind whenever the scenario starts, the players are going to have to be a part of that. It's a dialogue, not a monologue. So the player behavior and their responses to things is going to be a part of what determines what the tone is. I can try for certain directions. I can help take control of a scene and give it a certain bit, but the players are going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I can try and have a serious investigation and then have a character walk in with a brown paper bag saying he's got a bomb in a hospital.
Yeah, that would be hilarious.
But that's okay because we worked it out into being kind of a really messed up situation.
We did
and
play it out.
It worked out.
That's true.
But the part where I was able to bring that back was at the end of that particular chapter with the stuff that happened in the basement. That's where I took the horror and went, okay, we're not being as funny here. We need to clamp down on that. I want to go into a darker direction, and here's how I'm going to do it in my descriptions.
Yeah, you have often talked about that balance of having sort of humor moments and that sort of free form versus the get the ambient atmospheric play in punctuated points, which actually I tend to try to go dark the whole time, and I think you're absolutely right. That's better. It's better to vary.
Yeah. And it's just more natural to do. That's how people behave.
Yeah.
I'll have something I'm doing that's, serious and I'm working on it, but, I'm still going to crack a joke if something stands out as being particularly weird.
Right.
And, it's how you cope with these kind of weird things that go on. And I would think in the situations our characters find themselves in, I would be doing that a lot because I'd be freaking out inside. And that's just how one would cope.
Right.
So, Dan, how do you do that? I mean, in the past, what I've done is almost use an idea roll as like a referee whistle.
Don't do that, right?
Yeah, no, that's not good. No, I mean, this is a while ago when I first starting out. I was like, oh, well, I'll just make them roll an idea roll, and I'll tell them what they should be doing, and that's
right.
You could have a whole episode on bad gamekeepership, and that I could fill that episode too for you.
I could too. It'd be hours and hours long. I've got plenty of examples of my own.
But how do you bring them back, Dan? I mean, when your group goes into the funny and you're like, okay, now I got to get them back a little bit more in the right mindset for the horror that's coming. How do you do that?
Well, usually with some sort of a transition would be the most natural, comfortable way of doing it, is to, that scene over here, we're being funny and weird and having a great old time. So-and-so almost fell through the floor. We're just having fun bumbling around. Then I get them into the part where it's supposed to be scary, and that's when I will no longer respond to any humor going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I will
bring it down,
measure my voice, my tone, and I mean, it's just working with people. It's I found that works to be pretty darn effective. If whenever everybody knows that the GM of the game, they're the tone setters. As long as you're not, completely slavish about it, let the players have fun too. That's the whole point. Mm-hmm. But whenever you determine that, oh, hey, he's getting serious here. Let's do this. I've never had a problem with that actually just working. You just don't respond to that anymore, and you start describing stuff in the way that fits the mood you're trying to get.
Yeah, I can give an example, Dan, of where it worked. I think in that inheritor scenario, I was doing a kind of caricature of a guy who didn't know psychoanalysis. And I was asking this guy questions about his mother and so on, trying to get Freudian. And I thought it was silly and funny, and I was definitely performing, trying to be funny. Mm-hmm. You played the guy, I've forgotten his name now. Crosswell. You played him straight. And although there was a funny moment where you were like, this is really like horrifying that you're asking me these questions, because in fact my mother was eaten by a dog. My
mother killed by a dog.
Yeah. So it was like a bad player move, or certainly a bad PC move, that I felt like that self-corrected, because it was, as a player, I was like, wow, I really was taking that in a silly direction. And because you were committed, as John was saying, to playing the guy who's had this trauma, it felt like I had to play opposite that and kind of go to that level. So I would say that's as far as bringing it back mood-wise, that's a good example.
Yeah, but if you show by demonstration the type of mood that you're going for, I've never had a problem with the players picking up on that and following through and joining you on that, because that's the whole point for everybody being there. Let's see where this goes together. Now you have to be ready to actually bring it whenever it gets to, if you're trying to bring the tone back down to the dark foreboding, you need to be ready to make sure that you can deliver on it. Because otherwise it's just going to be, oh. And that's the part in the back of my head. I'm like, oh my God, can I do this? Can I do this?
Yeah.
Well, and that's my
anyway, and hope for the best.
That's always my when particularly in a story where I've got a mystery and I want them to get to a certain point, in a convention setting, and I want to let them wander at play at the fields of the Lord, but I also want them to get to the end at some point, and sort of there's that feeling of panic. The 2-hour mark, I take a break just to sort of regroup and go,
yep.
Okay, how am I going to get to the end here? Because we've wandered off, or worse, they're 10 minutes away from the end, and I still have 2 hours. Those games are sometimes even more. Okay, how can I improvise more for them to go and look at while still maintaining some sense of that there's a mystery here to be solved, and I'm not just creating obstacles to kill some time.
Well, in that circumstance, that's when I would listen to whatever the weirdest red herring that somebody's grabbing onto, and all of a sudden, now it's true.
Right.
I lucked out.
There's a long road to follow.
It was probably the third convention I ran a game at, and I had play tested it, and it went fine because the group stayed together to go to the different locations. And in the actual convention, they split up in 4 different directions. There was no inter-player interactions. They were just like, I go there, what do I find? I go here, and what do I find?
Oh my God.
And to the point where my good friend Edwin from Skype of Cthulhu was like, well, I want to find my hotel room. And it was really important he not find his hotel room. He was like, I'm going to call all the hotels in Portland, Maine. Oh, that could take a while. No, it won't. And so we broke, and I was like, oh my God. Unfortunately, these 2 other players ended up talking to an NPC, and I made the NPC combative, and they decided they were going to get combative back, and it killed a ton of time. I was never
all those fails, someone starts a bar brawl.
Exactly. Found a way to bring Edwin back into the game again and fully engaged. It was
Nice.
But yeah, there's those moments of, and I still don't know if the players realized how absolutely panicked I was at the halftime.
Yeah. Well, I've been there too. Having a game, having a hard time keeping cohesion and also saying yes. In fact, so this is it's saying yes, and it's also about the luck spending mechanic, which is a way of saying yes, in which the player sort of has to say yes. I mean, the GM, the keeper, ends up having to say,
any mechanic in the game that allows the player to take over the narrative like that is like, nope, I wasn't hit after all.
Yeah, right. And I think an example of that is the most recent game we played in, Sean, that I've talked about the whole example. But there was a moment where the bad guys show up, and because of a combination of luck spending and me saying, yes, you can do that, yes, that happens, it went differently than I think the writer had intended, the writer of the scenario. And it changed things. And I would say that was an example of where it didn't quite go so well because I wasn't prepared for that. In fact, that should have just been the end. It just started to spiral out of control, and the players were getting what they wanted. And just like any great Call of Cthulhu scenario, when the players or the PCs get what they want, that's probably bad too. And I think it could have been really satisfying, but I wasn't ready to improvise. I had a waypoint that I wanted to get to that was sort of far off in the distance, and I thought I had enough time to do it. And in fact, in the end, we sort of had to truncate the ending and do some kind of summary mechanics, if I remember right, to figure out.
I think, I as a player, though, I will tell you that, and I've started using, and I call them meta moments. Where I will just say, and in fact, this happened. I was running Dracula Dossier on Sunday, and somebody had a hard time limit, and they were trying to do this little mission-y thing, and they were having endless conversations about how they were going to find the hotel room of the person they were trying to get to. And I just said, look, guys, I got to do a meta moment here. We don't have time to do all the things that have to happen. Can we just agree that you are so good at what you do, you figure out where the hotel is?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That sounds good. And then, boom, we're there. And you did the same thing, Chad, which is you said, hey, this is a little, I want us to get here, and I don't know how to do it. And you basically asked the players to help you.
Yeah.
And everybody at the table is like, yeah, sure, let's do that. Let's figure out how to make that work.
Now, but what's hard to gauge is, does that somehow feel unsatisfying as from the player side, or do you think that some people did feel unsatisfied and some people didn't?
Well, one of the other questions I was going to talk about, and we can sort of lead into it actually, is the whole notion of immersion and how you bring people in and get them into the mode. And I'm increasingly skeptical about doing it at a convention anyway, because there are usually too many people, and the table next to you is giving up a big cheer because they knocked out the troll, but that's at the exact moment that, you know, something mysterious is happening in your game. So, but, you know, you could argue that it took away from the moment in the sense of we're in the midst of investigation. All of a sudden, as players, we had to move our characters forward.
Yeah.
And we weren't experiencing what our characters were doing.
Right.
We weren't immersed in what they were doing and responding as them. We were, as players, saying, okay, we're going to pick up and drop here, and then we'll be immersed again.
Yep. Yeah.
But I think that certainly in a convention setting in general, and just the way the experience up until then had been sufficient for people to feel like, you know, they got their quote unquote money's worth.
Right. Right. But it does seem less than ideal to have to do those kind of summary moments. If you can get the players to the desired point, which is something just before we go to the immersion that I was going to mention, that in theory, anyway, my idea for a convention where you have limited, or any time you have limited time, is to find a waypoint in the design of the scenario, whether you're writing it or one that's written, that is a fast forward point. What happened with that one is there was a clue. It happened to be a license plate, and it was, the whole thing kind of hinged on, once you get the license plate, then the investigators should kind of go check out the license plate and get an address. Well, I just didn't hit that button hard enough. It just didn't go that way. So I think my advice would be to find a fast forward point where you can control, as the keeper, something happens. Like the climax comes to you because the investigation's not over, and you know you didn't do the right things, and we're going to wrap it up this way. People bust in with guns, and that's the end.
Yeah.
Because then you can just say yes the whole way, right? You can go ahead and let them do whatever, as long as you have a chokehold or a funnel point.
A plan B.
Right.
Or just say no. I mean, particularly in a convention setting where you have limited time and less ability to suspend. I mean, I guess that's in essence what this question was about. Was I had in a Pulp Cthulhu game. There's one of the ones that's in the book. It specifically says you don't catch the car that did, you know, that's speeding away from where the murder happened. And I read that several times and went, well, what if they do?
Yeah.
I don't know what to do if they do. And so I made it very clear that there was no chance that was going to happen. And I guess if they had said, well, I'm going to use my pulp-like things to get by, I would have come up with something, a smoke grenade, a something. You see a magic spell. I would have had to make something up because there was no exit point for that one that would have worked. They had to get to the end point. There was a specific location they had to get to, and stopping that car and interfering with it wouldn't have made sense to go to that end point anymore. They would have had what they needed. So I guess that's the thing, is I think sometimes in these mystery type games, you may need to either be more imaginative than I was at that con, or say no.
Yeah.
And come up with a good reason for it. And as long as I think you can say no with a reason, players don't feel like you're artificially creating a boundary, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I think I think obstacles are what makes role-playing interesting and compelling. So sometimes those obstacles should be potentially insurmountable, where you don't have the luxury. So
as long as you don't want to always have like the video game where the doors in the hallway are just part of the graphics.
Right.
You know, you can't interact with anything except for the door at the end, because that's the only one that's actually a door. And so, you know, that's what frustrates people. But if there's a scene that has to go in a certain direction, most people are fine with that. Part of the narrative.
Yeah, I think it also goes the flip side. I mean, I think that's the case. I mean, I think the flip side applies too in these situations where, again, players having a responsibility to say yes. The notion that, you know, I've heard about these games where, you know, every time the players meet an NPC, they shoot them. That's their default mode. And I suppose if every time they shoot somebody, they happen to be carrying their diary or a business card or
Yeah.
a letter from their cousin explaining everything that they would have told them if they hadn't just shot him in the head. But that
Yeah.
feels just as artificial in some ways as the car getting away.
Yeah.
Right. That's a
Yeah,
good
and that-
fix
and
maybe
that's
once.
What was brought up by the guys on Good Friends is just that sort of thing. Because, yeah, apparently Matt has that habit of just shooting NPCs, and so that's just sort of an issue with certain players, I guess.
That's a side conversation I think I have after maybe twice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think is also allowed, but you're right. Sometimes you have to say no. And you know what I would say advice-wise for saying no is it may be better not to engage the mechanics if no is going to be the answer anyway. Because in your example, you weren't saying that the mechanics would be engaged, but in the scene that kind of ended up becoming a climax in that game in New Orleans, we were in combat rounds, right? And at some point, it felt like I have to kind of stick to these rules because
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yep, and you let me go and get a car and bring it around to block the alleyway that they could have escaped in, and at that point, you've got no choice. That car is staying there.
Yeah, and I said yes. And you were, I think, realizing that, well, maybe this is
Oh,
bad.
I kept trying to give you ways out. Like maybe I get lost. Maybe maybe I don't have the keys. Let's see if I have the keys. And you're like, do a luck roll, and I'm like, oh, Chad, just tell me I don't have the keys. And I rolled I rolled an impale, and you're like, ugh. And we're all like, ugh.
Yeah. Well, and that's funny. I mean, I don't want to be telegraphing that. Yes, this car. Everyone should realize this car is supposed to get away at this moment. And I wanted to see what would happen.
And you did.
That's the other thing about saying yes is I have a bit of a problem in that if people are being creative and doing interesting stuff, and particularly if they're role playing, meaning in this case improvising dialogue or doing character work, I have a really hard time interrupting that and sort of wrangling that in my direction. If I'm entertained by what the players are doing, I have a hard time cracking down. And like, I think it's not a bad place to come from, but it does bite you in the ass sometimes.
Sure, because players are rarely doing that because they want to move the story. They want to, in general, again, want to create some situation where it's better for them. And instead of having to go the long way around, they get whatever it is they were looking for quickly and, with minimum muss and fuss. So
possibly. I will push back and say I am particularly, if I find that the players are building atmosphere themselves, that doesn't necessarily have to do with gaining an advantage or something like that, then I am more prone to say yes. But in the case where your car is dry, you're clearly getting an advantage just in the character's goals in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I did say yes to that and let it fly.
Yep.
And it was interesting, and there was fire.
Cool. So why don't we go into improvisation or immersion rather? And what I'm curious about hearing you guys talking with you guys about is the idea of when do game mechanics help and when do they hurt in terms of immersing oneself in the game. And I'll give an example. I've been playing now with a keeper in a regular monthly game, and I know what my skills are, and I can say I'm going to search for something, I'm going to look around here, and I'm going to listen, but I never roll those sort of rolls. The keeper rolls those behind a screen. The only time I roll is when we're in combat and basically my character's life is at stake. And I kind of like it, I mean,
they're rolling all those skills.
That sort of thing.
Yep. Well, except for when we have to do an all roll. Like if everybody does a spot hidden at the same time, then we all roll those.
Yeah.
Because it's Although not always. Sometimes if it's like two of us doing it, he'll roll those two. And so there's often conversations going on, and you hear dice rolling behind the screen. Sometimes I think he does it just to poke us a little bit, like, what's going on? Why is he rolling dice? So, and I've actually had games convention games where I've given people descriptions of their characters and sort of indicated what they might be good at, but not give them any points. And so when they say they're going to do something, I roll, and they don't know if they're super good at that or not good at that. And it's interesting. It's a little bit like, it's not quite as focused as Cthulhu Dark in terms of, you have one, maybe two dice to roll pretty much everything. But it's interesting to watch people try to figure out what they're, how good are they at certain things. Anyway, I was just wondering how much you guys felt game mechanics get in the way of immersion and what you can do to help with that.
That's a constant battle that I have with various systems. We just talked about sanity and the rolling first versus describing first.
Mm-hmm.
And I may be changing my mind on this, but my tendency is to describe first, and then as an afterthought, hey, let's see how many points you lost so we can do the bean counting. But in fact, the bean counting it's designed to give rise to the scene, the elements of the scene in Call of Cthulhu.
So why is that? Why is I'm going to guess that's the only skill or only attribute that you have. You describe first and then have them roll.
Well, technically, it's not meant to be that way. Although you do, well, I'm thinking about how players are supposed to describe what they want to do in combat before they roll, but that's not exactly the same. That's not describing an outcome.
Yeah, not quite. Yeah. Yeah, it's what their movements are going to be, and then the success or failure of those movements is the roll.
Yeah, right. If I told you I climbed the wall, okay, let me roll my dice. You'd be like, yeah, that's the wrong order of things. Let's see if you climb that wall. And I kind of feel like sanity works better the other way, or treating it like the other skills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Cthulhu Dark does feel a little more flowy to me in that it kind of, since there's no are you losing 1 point or 5 point or 6 points there, it's just pass or fail, and I feel like you can describe the horror and then say, did that disturb you, or say that disturbed you, now roll the die, either way, and then based on the success or failure you can describe behavior,
elaborate. Yeah,
right. And I find that a more natural thing than rolling the sanity check before you describe kind of the most important part of the scene. I feel like dice are in my way. I'd like to kind of shift that focus, though, and maybe accept the idea of rolling first. And like maybe I'm too... Yeah. Maybe it's only in my way. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, or work on a house rule. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's fine.
No, I was just going to say, or come up with a house rule where every time you meet something that's horrible, you are going to roll an 8-sided dice, but on some things, you'll do a -2 on that. So if you roll a 1 or a 2, it's the same as passing your sanity roll. If you roll 3 through 8, you're going to lose some sanity, anywhere from 1 to 6. But then how far have you gone away from the game you were starting to play?
I'm not entirely sure I have my brain around that. It sounded like the 8-sided die is just replacing percentile.
Well, so the way it works right now is you roll a percentile to see if you passed or failed your sanity. And sometimes there's, a point if you failed, sort of a minimal,
right.
Poke with your pin. But if you pass. But if you fail, you then roll an 8-sided die. And if your concern is, well, I'd rather be more Cthulhu Dark, where it's, maybe you'll lose something maybe you won't. I mean, could you just set up a mechanic where you rolled an 8-sided die and then minus something from it depending on how creepy it was? Like maybe a ghoul is an 8-sided die -4. And if you get a 1 through 4, it's the same as passing your sanity roll.
Right. So there's no sanity check and then idea roll.
Exactly.
Structure. Right. But I'm not ready to say that Call of Cthulhu's sanity mechanic is in my way.
The way that I would think that could be a mid-ground there would be, the players come up to whatever the scene is that's going to have the sanity effect, and you do give a description of what they're seeing, and you can be all sorts of descriptive with it because that is the thing they see. Then they roll, and that's their response to that thing.
Yeah, maybe
you've had your time to describe it all out, and their response is what their role is. That's all they're rolling for, is their response to what is already there.
Right. So maybe the issue is this idea of varied description based on sanity loss is doesn't work very well with this structure. That it's better just to describe flatly what is seen and then consider the sanity roll a behave/response roll.
And I did that in our game that we referenced earlier, in that I described the whole Shoggoth scene at the end, and I'm describing it in as much detail as I could. I was throwing sound effects in there. I was trying to build the mood, and then, describe a nice tapestry of what the characters are seeing. Now roll San.
Yeah.
How do you respond to it?
The issue is that I like the varied description thing based on how much San loss too. Like if somebody really loses it, I like to go into full-on delusional hallucination mode, and that prompts behavior often when you describe San loss as a kind of you see a vivid scene of your childhood, and none of this is real, and you've sort of disassociated, and then have that person act that out, and then the other people see the person acting out whatever is happening. He's punching his dad, and it's a Shoggoth instead, or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a quandary.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing anyway when you've got a party full of players. If everybody rolls different San results, and then you have to give them all each an individual description of their personal environment, and then they're all at the table, so they're all listening to each other's, and then I go, okay, what was mine again? And
yeah, but that feels a little bit like a listen roll where somebody passed and nobody else did.
Yeah.
You kind of say, you guys don't hear anything, but you hear something creeping up the stairs. The other players know there's something creeping up the stairs. And maybe they're good and they're going to keep their characters from knowing it, but it does give them information as players that hopefully they don't act on in terms of their characters because they're so immersed in being that way. But yeah, I don't know. So I guess my question here was, what are some of the ways people have of trying to getting the crunchy bits out of the way from messing with immersion?
Yeah. I think I tend to swallow the mechanics. I often get them wrong just so that they'll be simpler. It feels like confession time now. Yeah, if something is too complicated, I will skip it or house rule a roll. I try, and at conventions, I am less likely to do that. And sometimes, for being extra careful, I think I slow my pace down. It's a little less natural because I'm trying to get the rules right, because I'm trying to represent the game.
This may be somebody's first time with it.
Yeah, they've signed up to play Call of Cthulhu, and I'm going to deliver the best possible rendition. So I think online, which is what my my non-convention games are these days, I tend to house rule and just say, oh, that's not the way I do it.
And so what makes you think, okay, I got to house rule this? What is it about a rule that makes you, is it just experience that doesn't work well in the players, or it takes away from the game in some way, or it's too complicated, too much mathiness?
Yeah, and it's personal. Like, on the player side, I don't care so much, but on the keeper side, I do. Why the laughing?
Oh, I'm just thinking all your players are listening like, oh, he doesn't care about us. Okay, good.
No. I mean, all right. No. As when I'm a player, I don't care so much. Yeah. I care very much about the player experience. Oh God, I've lost it.
When do you get rid of a rule, or when do you modify a rule?
Yeah, so it would be any rule that I'm not very comfortable with, and here are some examples. I never used even in cases of poison, or I never used the
potency.
No, damn it, what's it called? Please cut this out. I look like an idiot. The resistance table. Never used that. If I could avoid it.
Yeah.
If I could avoid it, I wouldn't use it because the book wasn't. I didn't want to open the book, and I don't use a keeper screen necessarily. If somebody wanted to grapple, that was just like a fist roll, or actually there's a grapple skill, but I wouldn't deal with the whole like first you grapple and then it's a complicated thing if you really look at it. It didn't.
Well, that's why they changed it, is because both of those things were such a sticking point to people.
Well, let me pull this out of there are examples in previous editions, but I think I have decided I'm not using luck spending usually. I'm going to come back to it for possible campaign play, but I've given it the college try, and I've decided that it pulls me out of it's too conspicuous as a mechanic.
Using the luck roll?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever hear the term dissociated mechanics?
I know, but I think I get it based on the term.
Well, it's a term by Justin Alexander. He wrote this article a long time ago, and it's basically the idea that there are some mechanics that disconnect you from the game world.
Right.
So let's, in his example is an interesting one. Let's imagine you're playing a role-playing game and it's a football game, and your football player has an ability called one-handed catch, and they can use it once per game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, an actual football player, if you were actually trying to be that character, when you make a one-handed catch, you don't go, well, I won't be doing that again because I don't have any of those left. Or when trying to catch the ball, it doesn't say, maybe I should wait until later because I only have one time I can catch a ball with one hand.
Right.
And so the luck mechanic is, to me, feels absolutely like a great example of that, because it's the player making a decision that's separate from the character's action.
Right, but let me counterpoint and say there are examples of mechanics that do that I don't mind. I think push is also a bit dissociative, right?
Yes.
You're coming out of.
So, but you have to explain it, and that's sort of the difference. Is you have to say what your character's doing to make an extra effort. So I just pushed against the door. I failed my strength roll. Well, this time I'm gonna step back and really run at the door, and that's why I can do the push roll, because my character is the sort that really wants to open that door. And I'm willing to risk, hurting myself badly, twisting my shoulder for that to happen. That feels different to me than a luck roll that the player says, oh, I'll burn 3 luck and I pass.
Yeah. That's a great kind of clean example. of pushing where
literally, yeah.
Yeah, where the character knows that there's a risk involved, but I think that's often not the case. I mean, they may, let's say a library use roll, right? The risk of pushing should be high enough to really affect the story in some way of a failed push in that situation. But a second, 4-hour stint at the library doesn't seem that risky from the character's point of view. And yet, I still love it. I can't.
But is that a push roll? I mean, do you say to people, well, you want to push it and spend another 4 hours? I mean, what do you have for negative consequences? Paper cuts or eye strain or?
Well, no, it would be
getting kicked the hell out and banned.
Right. It could be that. It could be something obvious like that. I mean, clear, or you can pay it forward in the story also. In the sort of creeping horror example in Cthulhu Dark, is like just stuff gets a little worse. The rain gets a little more sticky. The whatever it is that is kind of the growing aspect of horror in that particular scenario gets worse by one step. And so it's not necessarily connected to staying there for another 4 hours. Other examples are the library closes and you're locked inside. But the character doesn't necessarily know that they are, at risk of breaking their shoulder against the door. So it is, in that case, a moment where they're outside. They're making a gamble as a player rather than as a character. That makes sense?
It does, but I guess I feel like it's reasonable that the player is the one agreeing to it, but the character, it should be an outcome that's predictable to the character.
You think so?
I think so. I mean, I think otherwise, what's this? I mean, I think the whole point of the push is you're basically saying the character is going to make that extra effort despite the potential danger of doing it. I mean, that's how I run anyway. Is okay. Yeah. Well, tell me what your character's doing and why they're afraid. What they're afraid might happen if they don't do it. I try to put it in terms of, a deal with the player, but so much as an understanding of what the character might be afraid of happening if they fail their role, and then that's what I make happen, assuming it's reasonable.
Yeah, that's interesting. I might try that, but I think I'm going to continue to have it be the other way, unless somebody complains. That's possible. So the way I play it is a moment out of game. It does take the player out of game a little bit in most situations where I may foreshadow consequences, but the character does not know those consequences. The player does. And I think I like it.
That's how I generally interpret it too. But I don't object to the other idea of that the character knows. I think that's a situational thing that you could definitely bring in.
Sure.
Is that they know that, okay, if I mess this up, the guards are going to hear me. But, okay, I screwed it up once. They didn't. Oh, my luck's not going to hold out if I screw this up again.
Right.
Do I walk away or do I try it?
Yeah, that's an interesting take on it. But I'm saying I'm being a little bit, not hypocritical, but contradicting myself because I don't like the way luck spending takes the players out of game, but I do like, in the way I play it, the way push takes the players out of game for a second.
Well, and the difference for you may be there's at least a interaction element to the push roll. Like you and the player are having a conversation and spinning the tale together in a way that the luck roll is just, I'm burning some points that I didn't actually really earn. I just happened to have these when I rolled up my character, and now I succeed.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a dialogue.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think the leverage point for me is that the players become complicit in the something that's against their character's best interest.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Yep.
which is the goal for me. That's the bar. I want us all to
Jeez. Someone just failed their push.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I want. Is I want the people at the table to all be storytelling together and it being a horror story. And, I have a certain vision of what that means, which is not fair to, apply to everyone, but I hope to get there together.
Yeah, I think I may do it the different way just because of some of my early experiences. I'm super sensitive about having characters and thus the players feel like there's walls around them or rails underneath them or anything that sort of sparks of, well, this is what I'm going to do to you. And so I guess I look for ways of being able to have players buy into the bad things, not only as players but also agree that, like, oh yeah, that's something my character I wouldn't feel weird that happened. I'm not sure there's that different, but it may just be a difference of where you start the conversation.
Yeah.
So
it's really interesting. I feel like I, as a test, would be interested in trying it your way and just see how that feels.
Well, there you go.
Well, I'm trying to think of other mechanics that do the same. Where they're in my way, but I usually skip them if I can. That's my solution. Not very sophisticated, but that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm probably never going to use the chase rules. I'm sure I've listened to them and they're interesting, but they feel really artificial to me in some ways. So I'll come up with a variation on them maybe if I need one, but knock on wood, haven't needed one so far.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I was actually really looking forward to in the 7E stuff, and I just haven't taken the time to really let it percolate in my head on how it works. I bet that it can go pretty smoothly, but I haven't actually used it and practiced it. I think it's one of those things that once you get it down, somebody's really good at it could probably make an amazing scene with it.
Yeah, I'm agnostic about them. I think I got to a point of feeling like I got them in my head, but and I made one chase scene work well, but then realized that I hadn't done them properly.
Which is great. I mean, I think that's fine.
Yeah, I do too. I think if you just have a chase, I think you can just kind of run the chase scene, keeping in mind that you try to use different skills when they're applicable, try to be cognizant of going across different terrain that would necessitate those skills if possible. And that's just a good way to make a chase scene. I think the measuring the gap between predator and prey is more bean counting than I'm likely to do.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things that you gotta see what works for you to make it, because it has to feel like a natural part of the game. Otherwise, it becomes a subsystem that kind of steps to the forefront and breaks the continuity of the flow. But I want to figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah, no, and I've listened to actual plays and people who understand it and know how to guide the players through it. You're absolutely right, Dan. It sounds great. I just know it's not something. It would take me long enough to learn to do it that well, and it's not something that comes up often enough for me to put the time into that.
Yeah.
Versus something else.
Yeah. It's one of those mechanics that in order to get that kind of practice, you have to artificially insert chases everywhere to get that down. And that just is silly from a story point of view. So you're not always going to have chases one direction or the other.
As compared to, I was talking earlier about Dracula Dossier, I was prepared, although we never got to it, but I was fully prepared in that to run the Night's Black Agent chase mechanic, because chases are things that come up a lot in that game system.
Yeah,
and you
I
should
would
know how to
imagine
do
so. Yeah, if you're doing a Bourne movie, there's chases all over the place.
And they've got internal mechanics and parkour and all this other stuff. So I spent Saturday afternoon reading and rereading and testing it out, because it's something I'm going to use again and again. Call of Cthulhu, it just doesn't come up enough to work through figuring it out.
Well, I've got a counterpoint. So let's set aside how the mechanics actually work, but I am really interested in seeing more scenarios, not inserted in every single scene or every single scenario, but I like the idea of looking at horror scenarios as potentially exciting chase scenes, but not combat scenes. So like the Bourne movies are all about exciting action-like chases, but many movies are about exciting horror chases. And not just movies, but literature, fiction, and so I think that it's great to have some tools available to make that happen. But the ones
that's the thing. Why I want to learn the rules and make them work for the game, because I do think it fits horror really well. Party A wants to get the hell away from Party B for whatever reason. And usually Party B has teeth and claws. and Party A has little fleshy bits that taste good. So I want that to work. And I would love to see some published scenarios that, just a scattering of them that have that built in. And here is a chase sequence. Here's a breakdown of the rules. Here's the locations. Here's how it can work in this particular scenario. And make it as easy as possible to make that work.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've always had the toolbox available to have these chases. All you need is some skill checks or dex checks or whatever seems appropriate. You can easily do that. The thing is, why haven't there been very many scenes like that? Why haven't I run many chase scenes just kind of extemporaneously coming up with mechanics to solve the problem? I mean, I just haven't. And right? You haven't either. And you just said, but Call of Cthulhu, it just doesn't come up that often. Well, why hasn't it come up that often? It's definitely a trope of...
It's a huge horror factor of people trying to get away from the monster. Especially Lovecraftian monsters that
it tends
really
to
shouldn't be able to fight.
Tends to be that old joke, though. I don't have to be faster than the monster. I just have to be faster than you.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, usually if you're playing a solo game, if there's two of you, only one of you has to run fast.
That's true. That is right. That is actually a pretty good ending. Is whoever has the lowest dex gets eaten, and end of scene. Right. The others get away.
And the one that was faster rolls the sand.
Right.
You heard the crunchy noises.
There was a live play a little while ago where all the characters were in a room and a creature pops up from the middle of nowhere, and one of the players says, "I turn the corner of the doorway I am and hide." And that's what they did. And it was like, they didn't need a runaway mechanic. They just kind of hid while everybody else was, meat shields.
Yeah. I mean, think about Halloween, the movie. That's basically, the last, 75% of that is a chase scene through a house, right? It's just, she's just hiding in different places. And that...
Really just kind of slowly stalks.
Right. And rarely have I seen that kind of thing play out in a horror game, role-playing game.
Yep. Although, it's interesting. I have not read through John's Age of Cthulhu one, the one with dinosaurs, but one could imagine a scenario where it was, for raptors or whatever they're called, chasing after a party,
True.
that would be the sort of case where you'd really want to know the chase rules.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
It does
even
not
if one
have a
person
chase
goes
baked
down,
in, but
What's
yeah,
that?
you could totally. It does not have a chase baked in, but you could totally fit one in there very easily and very organically.
Hmm.
I have it. It's over on my shelf, but I have not read it yet because it's in the pile.
Yeah.
I'm glad John's not here to hear me say that.
I've run it.
So
It's good.
mad.
Although he has my money, so he can't be too sad. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
so those are really the two major questions I wanted to get to. I've got some other ones if you guys want to keep talking, or we can talk some other time.
Yeah, Dan, what do you think? I'm good until another 15 or so. Or we could wrap here. Natural breaking point.
Yeah, I'm kind of inclined towards the breaking point because these
Great.
others are really good topics too, and I would want to give them a fair amount of time, because that's good stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to see John for one that was at the top there.
Yeah. How do you come up with your story ideas?
Yeah, he's the most accomplished writer. in the
Yeah,
group.
yeah, he's the one definitely with the published cred.
Yep.
No, I agree 100%.
We didn't do a mid topic throw to YSDC. Do we just want to do one at the end? We could just do that.
Yeah.
Damn it. Volume's still a little high.
And Sean just wanted to say thank you very much for joining us for this. It was a lot of fun, and I think some really good conversation.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. And as a reminder to folks, YSDC, go, help out, pitch in. They matter. Without YSDC, we wouldn't be here. And I think there are actually quite a few RPG podcasts that probably wouldn't be either, even if they're just like influenced by somebody else who may have been influenced by YSDC. They were a catalyst for a lot of what we're doing now.
Absolutely. And there's a couple different ways you can do that. You can become a patron, which ends out being £12 per year or $15 per year at the lowest level. And then they have different tiers, and we won't get into the tiers, but you get access to podcasts and some of the background material as a patron. And the other way you can do is just chip in and give a one-time donation or several-time donation to YSDC's collection box. We'll have that link in the show notes. And any amount is helpful, and even a vote kind of serves as a vote in favor of YSDC.
Yep, absolutely. And we want to hear from our listeners. We have a lot of different ways that folks can reach out to us.
For the complete list, check out our show notes for our email address, which is now mup.feedback@gmail.com, as well as the phone number, SpeakPipe link, and our forums.
Send us your questions, feedback, and topic ideas, or just join the discussion board. And the way it was written, I was like, what? Send us your questions, feedback, and topic ideas, or just join in the discussion. Record a liner, tell us who you are, and give us a hearty go pods for our home team, the Fighting Cephalopods.
Find all the links you need to keep in touch at mu-podcast.com/126.
Thanks for joining us for another episode. Class is dismissed.
All right.
All righty.
Hey, Chad, you might want to re-record while we're all here. It's for a patron. It's £12 for every 3 months, not for the year.
Oh, I do want to re-record that.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
Thank you. Jesus.
I should be doing more errata next week.
Let's see.
More falling on sword sounds.
I know. That would be a bad one. giving everyone a deal. By the way, off record, he cleared the
I love that.
That's gross. And there's a couple different ways you can contribute. You can become a patron, which, oh damn it, you can become a patron of YSDC. That is about £12. Well, it's exactly £12. God damn it.
12 pounds per quarter.
Yes.
I think that's how it works.
Yes, you can become a patron, support YSDC by giving £12 per quarter, which is about £15 per quarter. Nope.
$15.
Do you want to record this on your own and email it to me?
I can if you want.
Maybe you would be able to get through it easier.
I wish this would work for an outtake, but it's bad
it's
information.
not really practical.
No. Okay, just give some money to YSDC for God's sake. Just screw it. Just give out your money. Pay.
Paul's awesome. Give him money.
You can do this. Come on, three take Chad. That's what they always call you, right?
Nope. It's much higher than that. Yes, you can become a patron by giving £12 per quarter, and you get a bunch of different advantages. You get extra recordings, you get access to the podcast, you get a chat room, all kinds of different cool stuff. And it's just a good way to support the site. Or you can give a one-time donation to YSDC's collection box. We'll have the link in the show notes for both of those things. And any amount will do. Send them some help. They could use it right now, and we'd love to have the MU community pitch in.
That'll work.
Did I say it right? Was somebody ombudsman?
No,
was I
did not catch anything.
No, it all sounded very factual.
illegal? Yeah.
That'll do, pig. That'll do.
Well, that was good. That was. I mean, I feel like I could have talked, a whole other hour on those topics.
Oh yeah, we could have easily just kept rolling with that for a while.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad that worked
But
out
that
for you guys.
Yeah, very well. Yeah, very much so. So yeah, we got to have you on and do the other ones. I think I would actually rather cover these other ones with you here because you were coming up with good examples for your thoughts. So I like that a lot. That was great.
Yeah, that would be cool.
So yeah, let's we'll figure out some other time to do it. I'll send you the info for. We are going to do an Extra Life thing, as you guys know. So we may send you a blurb about that to make sure people know to bring their money to Necromicon.
Right. And what did you call it?
I call it the wrong thing every time. I make up a name. I've just started calling it Necro, but that makes Elizabeth weirded out. You're going to what? Necro? What? That's not right.
It's the same as the name of the book.
Yeah.
Is somebody, Dan, are you doing one? Or I feel like everybody.
I think I agreed to
You
one.
are.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
So it's on Saturday from 2 to 6 right now.
Okay.
I've gone to great lengths to make her realize that if she's scheduled at the same time as a podcast, we won't do it. And she's finally sort of got that message. So 2 to 6.
Yeah, I'm actually on a couple of panels and stuff, but I don't know when anything is. So
well, Jesse was supposed to know this weekend, last weekend, but never told me. And I feel like I have only so many times in which to engage her, and so I'll try again. I mean, the real problem is she's trying to do this and do a wedding, and it's just I don't think it's working as well as she'd like. So
oh lordy, yeah, that was maybe.
And she's doing graduate classes. So,
sure, that makes sense because
because you need that extra bit.
Yeah, you've always got extra time when you're doing that.
Yeah. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow.
So anyway, cool. All right.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. That was awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
We'll talk soon.
All right.
Yep. Absolutely.
Take care.
Talk to you later.
Oh, and leave your Zencaster up before. Well, it'll upload quickly, but don't shut your browser down right away. Oh, he's gone. Oh, that's why we had an echo.
Yeah.
Your Zencaster is still going. So it was VoIPing.
Yeah, but I don't have it on. That's the weirdest thing is it's not turned on. And
hang on, let's look at all. Yeah, good. That's good. We did MP3. Nope. It's this round. Yep, you're good. You should be good, right, Dan?
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. We're good. All right. Okay. Bye. You're still there, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I was hearing like it was like the echo was more synced up this time, so it was actually more of an effect.
Yeah.
You know.
So yeah, so weird that I tell it specifically, not to do something, but it does it anyway, and I don't understand it. And
if I'm not mistaken, it does it every single second half of the show, like every time.
Yeah.
We've always had that problem. Like,
yeah, I'm not changing the settings at all. So,
and I forget how we correct it. Do we just stop it again and restart, or?
Yeah, that's basically our only real options is just to, maybe have me reboot or something like that. Refresh the page.
Yeah.
Let's see, got everybody's audio.
Yeah, I mean it won't matter for Zencaster, although your Zencaster audio is probably not going to be good, I would guess, in the beginning.
Yeah, we'll just have to see as it goes. We've got the other various things. Hopefully my Tascam track will be clean.
Yeah, that'll be fine. Should be fine. And I've got mine too. I sounded okay through VoIP at least. Right, during the show?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm stopped.
Yeah, you sounded fine.
Okay.
So,
that's hard to say. Cool.
All right.
Yeah, I can do show notes. You're doing the edit. Will you do the edit?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yay. I'm really sorry I had to pass the last one off in middle edit, but
that's fine. Once I got a feel for where we're at, it wasn't too bad. I was just kind of flailing at first, going, "Where the hell am I?"
Right.
This makes no sense. Yeah, this one shouldn't be a problem.
Oh, so Necronomicon's coming up.
Yep.
Kinda. So Wednesday night through Saturday night, basically, right?
Yeah.
Checking out Sunday.
I'm going to be there on Wednesday afternoon and then through Sunday afternoon.
Cool. And we don't know about Murph yet.
Yeah. I wish I had the extra to just,
same.
Pull the trigger on a ticket and
I'm not
say, just get your ass to the airport, dummy, and let's do this.
Yeah. And one of the knock-on effects is we can't do a Kickstarter for John. Or I mean, for John, with John's scenario, who's going to offer, which would be, we'd have to rush that now anyway.
Yeah. It's that's the painful thing, is that there is the good possibility we're not gonna get a Murph.
Yeah.
And it makes me sad. And
I definitely, I mean, I may be able to pony up. I can certainly pay for as planned, just pay for my part of the hotel and not worry about his contribution. That was like how I was hoping we could help him.
Oh yeah, I wasn't gonna ask him for anything for the hotel part. I've just got it, but yeah.
I don't know. John doesn't have anything written. Could we do something on a drive-through RPG and try to get some funds? I don't think we can get his flight paid for, though. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... Yeah, at this point in time, I really don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. I know there are people who are willing to help, probably. Tim and some of his other friends, but I feel like if we... I mean, I don't want to ask on his behalf, and he's really embarrassed to ask, so...
Yeah, that's another part of it, is that he doesn't want to be that,
Like
in
a
that
burden.
position.
Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't want to feel that way. And it's like, well, but, he really needs that getaway.
I believe so. I mean, I think it's only every 2 years, and he got so much out of the last two that I know it would kill me to miss this, miss one. So
Yeah.
not sure what to do. Can we? I mean, what would a fundraising situation look like? We can't do Kickstarter, or crowdfund. Well, can we? Well, wait a minute. Oh, we just can't offer a Chaosium product.
Right. It couldn't be a Call of Cthulhu rules thing.
Right.
If we wanted to do a non-ruled scenario, as long as it doesn't have stats in it.
Right.
That's fine.
Right.
And,
I wish I had something that I could pull off the shelf.
Yeah, me neither. And it takes me too long to be able to do things like floor plans and stuff. I'd be happy to do something like that, but I just don't have the time to devote to it. Especially now that I'm figuring out CAD. I mean, I could, if I had the time, I could do some great stuff there.
Yeah, you could build a robot or like.
Well, no, I'm talking about a full 3D CAD of a house or something.
Yeah, you could do one of those. You know what I love is something that's really popular now is, I forget what it's called though. The 3/4 view, where you could look at a whole dungeon from kind of angle. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Those are
and then you got the different levels that you can see how they stack in relation to each other. And
your your weird factory, abandoned factory thing.
Yep.
Levels of hell or whatever.
Well, it's actually already in progress.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Don't say anything to anybody, but yeah, I started up the CAD to actually make a floor plan.
For that?
Yeah.
Oh, you're kidding me. That's awesome. Oh.
And trying to figure out the scaling and stuff, and and doing tons of searches for images. Okay, what would a period one look like?
Oh,
what
wow.
goes where? How does this work?
Well,
so yeah.
Cool. Nice.
So I'm working on it because I love making floor plans, and this is like just a giant thing. So
juicy floor plan task. Yeah.
And I have a plot line laid out and all that stuff. It's
shit, that's great.
It's slowly been percolating. So
awesome.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I want you to play test it with us if we can ever get 4 people. Ever get us.
My hope. My pie in the sky is to have something done enough that we could try and get us together with the good friends at the con.
Oh,
and I could run it for everybody.
Oh, that would be cool.
That's like the ultimate way to test drive it with that many experienced people behind it.
Definitely.
And
so what a cool group of players that would be too.
Oh yeah, I'd love to run our crew and friends through something.
Yeah.
Talk about that being a badge of honor.
Totally. And rare, like not easy to get together, right?
Exactly. All 3 of the good friends and Mike and you and Murph was my dream team.
Yeah. That'd
And
be
just
cool.
picturing that. I mean, just think of that player group dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
And then just set them loose in the factory.
Yeah.
And all I have to do is sit back and watch the carnage.
That's true. Talk about sandbox. Just
Yep.
Oh man, Murph and Scott.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And Matt with his shoot everything.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
And
well,
I think I've come up with a cool way to do pre-gens for it too.
Hmm.
A way to customize, a little bit of randomize. If that works out, that may be a thing that we can like do as like freebies now and again out on the site for download. But I want to prototype this and work it out a little more in my head.
Okay. The pre-gen thing you mean, or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
The pre-gen concept of where you have a character, the stats are established, core skills are established. Give them like another 50 or 75 points they can allocate wherever the hell they want. Base gear established. Then a short description of their motivations, not really their personality, but their motivations, how they would see things. And then I would have a short stack of probably like 3x5 cards. It's like, okay, everybody gets one of this type, and they'll be random. And then here's another stack of, oh, and you're allowed, you can choose, up to 3 of these if you want. Some might be good, some might be bad. It's like a deck of many things for character pieces.
Oh, I like
those
it.
might be your character secretly has a gun in their pack. Or your character is really claustrophobic and you're doing this to try and get over it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, let me have that one. Oh, that's awesome.
So, yeah, that's my idea for being able to do that sort of thing. So that way, every time you're going to have a different player character dynamic.
Right, because they'll match up differently. Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I like it. Oh, that's very cool.
So, yeah, that's just something I have stewing that I'm working on.
Cool. Would that be a deck? Is that the idea?
Yeah, a short deck of like 15 to 20. And so, yeah, you can choose none or you can choose up to maybe 3, I think is fair. And with them
like it
scattered about, you can get, 3 great things, or you can wind up with, 3 really shitty things.
Fighting claustrophobia, also hates people, and
yep,
eczema. So
yeah,
you're welcome. My guy's terrible.
I'd love that when frightened.
Right. Roll sand. Yeah. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
So okay, but neither of us can pony up. I get that. Like neither of us are in a position, but I
haven't even looked at what rates are
for flight. Well, I could take a look at that, but I'm expecting not small, and especially in the summer, and especially we haven't planned ahead very far.
Getting
so
closer. Yeah.
21 days is the cutoff where it becomes extremely higher. So I'll at least look into that, and maybe I could shoot John a message and ask if there's any chance we could do a drive-through RPG sale and make it. Is there any way for us to make it? Can we just overprice it and make it a fundraiser deal, or? I guess it's all profit. Well, it's not all profit because they take a 30% cut.
Yeah. See, I've never done anything to drive through as a sending it there.
We can't do e-commerce on ours for PDF, can we? on our site.
I think so. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Maybe that would be the way to go.
Mhm.
Right.
But what would we be selling if we can't sell the? Well, actually, yeah, that would fall under the non-Kickstarter, like mid-grade, which isn't really a big deal.
Right, which we might
The
like
under
almost
2000
have.
thing.
Right, it'd be under 2,000. We don't need to make over 2,000.
Yeah.
Nor is it likely.
At that point, that's when we make it free.
Right. Well, yeah, but then that would screw everyone.
Or do like the, well, because see what the HP Podgraph guys did is they actually did their ransom thing of when we reach 2,000, we'll release this to the public.
Oh,
And it was
ransom.
voluntary donations. Yeah.
Mm.
And nobody got anything until it reached that. It was just, and everybody knew it going in.
Now, I wonder if that counts as crowdfunding. The other thing is...
Well, if we cut it off at 2,000 anyway...
Yeah.
Then we're
the
still
other thing
within
is
their,
we can strip mechanics out. Like it's,
True.
you know... I don't know if he's already written it, but that's an option.
It sounds like he had it pretty well done.
Yeah.
We can ask about it and see what the status actually is.
Well, we've got to get on it because, you know, July 4th weekend is upon us and, you know, pretty soon it'll be August. So let me ask John and maybe we can get this thing going in some legal fashion.
Yeah.
Do you think it'd be better to do... is ransom crowdfunding? Does that count as crowdfunding?
I have no idea. That's something we would have to ask.
We'd also have to get a license fast. Yeah. Because they said it would be okay. And then according to these rules, it kind of wouldn't be okay to do a Kickstarter. And I feel like at this point, we would look really weird being able to kickstart when no one else can at that middle level.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll email John and see what's possible.
Okay. I'll email Mike and
That's
see
a
if
good
I
idea.
can get a general idea there and say, okay, here's what we're thinking, you know, I'll give him both the just download up to the limit thing and the ransom one. I'm actually leaning to the ransom one. I think that's kind of a cool way to go.
Yeah. Do we get to offer like early release to the people who actually pay or, because the ransom is like, it becomes free after that or it just goes to the people who pay?
No, it goes to everybody. It is literally released to the public once the goal is reached.
Yeah. Cause this really is, I mean, it'll be a product that people might want, but it's also, it'll be marketed as like help Murph get there. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a help cover our expenses thing.
Yeah.
And we will, you know, I don't plan on marketing this as help Murph get there. This is a please help cover our costs for the convention so we can make it a great experience and great recordings. And, you know, we know that a piece of it will go towards.
Oh, I guess that might put Murph. Right. I see. It might kind of put Murph in a weird spot to have this.
Yeah.
Thing. Yeah.
Exactly. He doesn't want people knowing, you know, what his situation is like. That's nobody else's business.
Right. So
it's just a help, you know, MUP, and he's just part of that.
Right. Yeah.
You know, if it also happens to cover our hotel, awesome.
Right.
I'm good with that. That covers all three of us. Woo! But
ironically, John would be the creative power who doesn't get to go.
I know. But I am glad at least he did have his other, he had Gary Con. That was like a really good experience. So even though he can't do this one, he did have that, but
I'm the grumpiest.
I'm going to miss him.
I know. I'm the grumpiest one. And I think he and I should have a conversation in which I apologize because I have been maybe the least understanding. I've been frustrated that he didn't try and that he wouldn't replace Necronomicon instead of GaryCon when the costs actually would have been in the ballpark enough so that a Kickstarter could have, or whatever, could have made, like $150 difference is what, if that was the case. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Plus, I mean, there was a time thing too, in that it is a longer period away from home.
I think that's more of it, and I wasn't clear. I think that's more of the deal, and it wasn't clear to me at first.
It was partly away from not making an income, and it was partly, I think, some pressure from the missus as well.
Yeah.
That it needs to be a shorter thing if you're doing something.
Yeah.
So that's my understanding.
Yeah. Yep. I'll just get in touch with John, see if there's something we can throw together quickly that doesn't put us into like overextended zone. See where he is and see if we can launch something.
And I will send a message up to Mike and see whether the ransom thing actually is a fit.
Yeah.
Within their guidelines. I think it would be. And
it might be. I would say, I don't know how you feel, but I would vote if we were voting to not be in violation of those rules, because I think it, even if they make an exception, because it would feel kind of weird to have people who wanted to do a Kickstarter, but then they changed the rules and then we get to do it as a special thing. I would feel a little strange about that. That's just my 2 cents. Wherever.
Which is why this is not a Kickstarter.
I know. Well, I'm just saying, if they say, I'm anticipating possibly they'll say, oh, well, technically that's crowdfunding and we're not allowing it, but for you guys, we'll allow it because you're friends. And
yeah, if they do qualify that as, then we would go outside of that, regardless of what they would say was okay. Because I agree. We don't want to. Our relationship should not be flouted like that. It needs to be a
okay,
so we're a friendly thing. I agree.
On the same page. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Cool. I'll talk to John. You talk to Mike, and we'll try to get this together as soon as possible so that there's funds.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay, man.
All right.
All right. Have a good night. Thanks.
You too. Talk to you later.
Take care. Yep. Bye.
Bye.